Have you ever wondered why nobody has ever gone back for the Bismarck? I don't mean why it sank. If you're watching this channel, you probably already know the basics of that story. But if you don't, the short version is that Nazi Germany built the most feared battleship in the world, sent it out on a single mission, and within 8 days, the Royal Navy had hunted it down and destroyed it in the North Atlantic. What I want to know is what happened after that. The Bismarck has been sitting on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean for more than 80 years now, and in all that time, nobody has touched it. Nobody has raised it. Nobody has salvaged it. Nobody has even seriously tried. And the reasons why involve a depth that breaks almost every rule of conventional salvage, a legal status that Germany will not budge on, and a wreck that turned out to be in far better condition than anyone expected, which only made the questions around it more complicated, not less. To understand why the Bismarck is still down there, you first need to understand what it actually was. When it was commissioned in August 1940, the Bismarck was one of the most powerful warships Europe had ever produced. It stretched over 800 feet from bow to stern, displaced more than 50,000 tons fully loaded, and carried 8 15-inch guns split across 4 turrets. Roughly 2,200 men served aboard her. German propaganda called the ship unsinkable, a word that would haunt the Kriegsmarine within a year of saying it out loud. The Bismarck only ever sailed on one offensive operation. In May 1941, it left the Baltic alongside the heavy cruiser Prince Eugen under the codename Operation Rheinübung, with orders to break into the Atlantic and start sinking the convoys keeping Britain supplied with food, fuel, and weapons from America. It almost worked. On May the 24th, the Bismarck ran into 2 Royal Navy warships in the Denmark Strait between Greenland and Iceland, the battleship Prince of Wales, and the Royal Navy's pride, the battlecruiser HMS Hood. The engagement lasted minutes. A single shell from the Bismarck found its way into Hood's ammunition magazine, and the explosion that followed broke the ship in half. Of the 1,421 men aboard her, only 3 survived. It remains the worst single loss of life in Royal Navy history. Britain's response was immediate and absolute. Winston Churchill's order was simple: sink the Bismarck, whatever it takes. Nearly every available ship in the Royal Navy joined the hunt. But the Bismarck had taken damage of its own in the fight with the Hood. A shell had ruptured a fuel tank, costing the ship roughly 1,000 tons of oil, and leaving an unmistakable slick trailing in its wake. Its captain turned for occupied France, hoping to reach the safety of port at Brest before the British caught up. For a day and a half it actually worked. The British lost track of the Bismarck entirely. Then Admiral Günther Lütjens, apparently believing he had successfully shaken his pursuers, broke radio silence to send a lengthy report back to Germany. British intelligence intercepted it, and the chase was back on. On the evening of May the 26th, torpedo bombers launched from the carrier HMS Ark Royal found the Bismarck and attacked through deteriorating weather. Most of their torpedoes missed or failed to do real damage against the ship's armour. One did not. It struck the stern and jammed both rudders hard over, locking the Bismarck into a slow, helpless circle in open water. The crew worked through the night trying to free the rudders. They couldn't. By the next morning, 2 British battleships, King George V and Rodney, along with a pair of heavy cruisers, had closed the distance and opened fire. What followed wasn't really a battle in the usual sense. It was closer to an execution. The British ships fired close to 2,800 shells and scored hundreds of hits at point-blank range. And here's the part that still surprises people when they hear it. Even after nearly 2 hours of that, gunfire alone still hadn't sunk her. The armoured hull held. In the end, it was the Bismarck's own crew who finished the job, opening the sea valves and setting scuttling charges as the order to abandon ship went out. She rolled and went under at 10:39 in the morning on May the 27th, stern first with her flag still flying. Of roughly 2,200 men aboard, only 114 survived. Now here's where the story most people know actually ends, and where the question I'm asking begins. The wreck wasn't found until June 1989, when Robert Ballard, the same oceanographer who had located the Titanic 4 years earlier, tracked it down roughly 600 miles west of Brest, at a depth of about 15,700 feet. That's nearly 3 miles down, and what Ballard found down there wasn't what anyone expected. Despite the hundreds of shell hits, despite the torpedoes, despite a 3-mile drop to the ocean floor, the Bismarck's hull was largely intact. Sections of teak decking were still in place. Paint was still visible on the metal. The anti-aircraft guns were still sitting in their mounts, as if the ship had simply been parked there rather than destroyed in one of the most lopsided naval battles of the war. Ballard later said the hull showed no sign of having imploded on the way down, which tells you something important. When a sinking ship still has air trapped inside it, the pressure at depth crushes the hull violently on the way to the bottom. The Bismarck shows none of that. Its compartments were already flooded when it went under, which lines up with what the survivors said happened. The crew had opened the valves themselves before she finally rolled. So if the wreck is intact, reachable in the sense that submersibles can get to it, and sitting in a known location that's been mapped since 1989, why has nobody gone back for it? The depth is the first and most obvious answer. 15,700 feet is well beyond anything a conventional salvage operation can handle. The largest commercial salvage jobs in history have taken place at a tiny fraction of that depth. Reaching the Bismarck at all requires the kind of deep-sea submersible used for scientific research, not the kind used for hauling steel up off the ocean floor. There is currently no method that exists to lift a 50,000-ton battleship from 3 miles down, and there's no serious indication that one is coming anytime soon. But depth alone doesn't fully explain it, because depth is a problem you could theoretically throw enough money and engineering at to eventually solve. The second reason is harder to get around, because it isn't a technical limitation, it's a legal one. Under international law, the wreck of the Bismarck belongs to Germany, and the German government has been completely unambiguous about what it wants done with it. Nothing. The ship is formally recognised as a war grave. Roughly 2,100 men went down with her. And Germany has stated plainly that entering the wreck, or removing anything from it, requires their permission, and that permission will not be given. As far as Berlin is concerned, that's the end of the conversation. Ballard himself took this seriously enough that after his 1989 expedition, he deliberately kept the precise coordinates of the wreck secret, specifically to stop anyone from going down there to take things. He considered removing artifacts from the site a form of grave robbing, and treated it accordingly. That hasn't stopped everyone. In 2001, a separate expedition brought paying tourists down to view the wreck in submersibles, which sparked real controversy at the time, even though nothing was actually removed from the site. The wreck itself, meanwhile, isn't going anywhere on its own terms either. The cold, dark, oxygen-poor water at that depth means the wood-boring organisms and corrosion processes that eat away at shallower wrecks barely function down there. Researchers estimate the hull could remain largely intact for several more centuries. So that's where the Bismarck sits today, 3 miles down in the North Atlantic, upright, recognisable, guns still in their turrets, flags long gone, and almost completely untouched since the morning it went under. It's too deep for any salvage technology that currently exists, and even if that changes, it's legally protected as a war grave that Germany has no intention of ever allowing anyone to disturb. The most feared battleship Nazi Germany ever built spent 8 days at sea, sank the pride of the Royal Navy, and then was hunted down and destroyed in return. It went looking for a fight in the Atlantic, and the Atlantic is exactly where it's going to stay. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please let me know in the comments, and I'll make more of these for more ships. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss those, and I'll see you next time.